You're listening to What to Read Next podcast, episode 46. Welcome to the What to Read Next podcast. This podcast is hosted by Laura Amin, a voracious reader of romance and young adult novels. In this podcast, Laura interviews fellow readers and authors and asks them for book recommendations of what we should read next. We hope you enjoy. Welcome to the show, guys. So happy to have you here. Today I want to share about Reese Witherspoon's Hello Sunshine Book Club picks. I did an episode a while back and I shared my thoughts about 3 of her selections I thought about it. Over the past 4 months, I read 3 of her selections and loved them. So I want to share a little bit about each selection, what I thought about it, and whether you should pick it up next. So the first book is Erotic Stories for Punjabi Widows by Balli, Kaur, Jaswa. I'm definitely butchering the author's name, but this is a story about Nikki, who's a young Punjabi who lives in West London. She's definitely contemporary. She's not into the community, into the culture, but he's grown up, and somehow she ended up being in the community center, and she discovers they're looking for a teacher to teach a writing class, and she thought it was creative writing, but there's some miscommunication, and so it's actually a learning how to write class. But somehow the Punjabi widows are not feeling that type of module, so they were like, we're going to write erotic stories about in secret. So they start writing these erotic stories and they start sharing them on each other, and so it's a really great story. Each chapter weaves a different story from the Punjabi widows. There's a murder mystery. There's opposition from the community because this is taboo. So it's a really fun story to read. This story is about a close-knit community. It's a culture. It's an own voices story. So I really enjoyed the story, and I gave this book 4 stars. So if you're looking for a little bit of romance, a little bit of interesting, a little murder mystery, then pick this book up. The second book that I picked was June's Pick, which is Something in the Water by Catherine Steadman. This is a thriller that starts with a bang. It starts with the first chapter tells you one thing, you're like, what the hell just happened? And then it goes slow for the first 30% because you're trying to learn about the couple and about the backstory. But then when they find something in the water, then the story picks up and it just never stops. So it's a really good story. And I won't tell you what's something in the water, but there's actually it's really cool. So what they discover in the water. So it's a page turner. It's a great beach read. So if you're still reading this summer, looking for a summer read, then pick this up. It's best to go blind because it has a lot of twists and turns. I really was annoyed by the characters' decision making. So that was one thing I hated. I was like, oh my gosh, why is she making this decision? But it was a really fun story to read. So I gave this book 4 stars. The third and final book is Next Year in Havana by Chanel Cleeton. This is a historical fiction based on a dual timeline between a grandmother in 1959 while the revolution was happening in Cuba and a granddaughter in 2017 while aftermath of the revolution after 60 years. So it's set in Cuba, as I mentioned. There's a romance, but it feels secondary. The story is about the revolution in Cuba and how it is in present day. It's a beautiful story that's transported there. You feel like you're in Cuba. You learn about the history. You learn about what happened in 1959. You learn what happened in 2017, how lives had transformed, how parallel the timelines are, and how different things are too. As someone who grew up surrounded by the Cuban exile community in Puerto Rico, this story transported back to childhood. So it just reminded me of the things that I heard growing up about Fidel and all the different things about what Cuba was like. So it's something that really connected me to my own culture. This book made a huge impact on my personal life. And I'll reveal more in the future, but it definitely made a big impact on some decisions that I made and some things that I'm looking forward to bringing back. I really give this book 5 stars. So I'm not a fan of historical fiction. I didn't think I was a fan of historical fiction until I read this book. And then I read Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, and then I was like, oh my gosh, what am I missing? so this book actually really helped me kind of expand my genre. So I definitely encourage you to pick it up. If you're not a historical fiction fan, just try to pick it up. It's actually a really good story. There's a good contemporary timeline. There's a good 1959 timeline. There's a lot of information there. So that's one thing. So I encourage you to pick Next Year in Havana for sure. So for August, the pick is Still Lives of Maria Hummel, and I only one chapter in the book, but it seems like it's going to be a fun ride. It's a thriller. It's actually interesting. I'm actually listening to this book. So there's a partnership between Audible and Reese Witherspoon Book Club, where they have the audiobooks available for one credit or for $20, however the price is on Audible. But so I haven't listened to the other books, but I heard the other books' audios are really great. Something the Waters by has been narrated by the author, who was in the Downton Abbey actor. Next Year in Havana is narrated by two different women. There are two different actresses, so that's actually they heard the audiobooks really good. So I'm listening to audiobooks still live, and it's actually for the first chapter is pretty good. So I'm looking forward to listening to it for the rest of the day. For the rest of the month, it's about 9 hours, so I should be able to finish at the end of the month. I have to admit that the books that I picked up for recommendation of this book club have been a hit for me, and I'm glad. So I want to hear about you. Do you follow any celebrity book clubs? Come on over to the blog and share it with your friends. Go over to whattoreadnextblog.com/46 and let us know what some of the books you picked up, what recommendations you learned, and some celebrities you follow through. Just a reminder, we have a $20 Amazon gift card giveaway going on, and it is simple. All you need to do is go to Apple Podcasts or iTunes, visit What to Read Next podcast, and leave a review. It can be one line. Doesn't have to be too complicated. Once you leave a review, you're eligible for the giveaway. The winner will be announced September 4th, 2018 show. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you have a fantastic day.